Okay, we're going to do a lesson on 1, 2, and 3-point perspective. The main vocabulary words you want to be aware of is perspective, regarding also point of view. Also, this was refined, or started. Artists started demonstrating stronger comprehension of this during the Renaissance, and where you'll see 2-point perspective and 3-point perspective applied in a more complicated fashion. Vanishing point and horizon will also be keywords to pay attention to in this lesson. So when we're starting off, we have one vanishing point for 1-point perspective. The vanishing point is referring to the concept of things disappearing as we go further away. So everything disappears to this point. So hypothetically, let's just kind of draw like a square somewhere in relationship to your vanishing point, and then you're going to take the 3 corners that are closest to your vanishing point and connect them to your vanishing point. And then you're going to make a line that's parallel with this one. So see how I had the ruler right up against it, and I just slid it straight back and went straight across this way. And then did the same thing going this way to define this edge, right, of the cube, right? And you should see something going straight back to the vanishing point. I'm hoping this is review for most of you. You also have maybe you have like a set of railroad tracks, or a sidewalk, or a road. Right, and everything goes back to that single vanishing point. Okay, so it's very similar to like you're looking at the cube straight on. You can see this one plane is the same that you're seeing right here in this one side, and then all of the information that's going away from you is going to this vanishing point. Okay, you can see this applied in The Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci during the Renaissance. You can see all of the tops of the doors. They all line up to a vanishing point that's created behind Jesus's head. You also have the table, right? So it's a very formal presentation. Everybody's on one side of the table. We can only see one side of the table as the side that's closest to us, and everything is pushed back further. It's interesting to note that also prior to this time you have like a lot of dinner plates behind religious figures' heads, and in this particular image you have the windows that contrast with the bright light that also helps imply the halo. I do want you to know that this is on a wall inside a monastery, and you can see that the monks cut a door through the image after it was made, so just something to think about what their perception of this image might have been too, so just to keep that in mind. So this is during the early Renaissance when this particular image was made. So now we're going to move on to 2-point perspective. And so in 2-point perspective, you will be using 2 vanishing points. Okay, so what you normally will see is your vanishing points will lie right on the horizon, and we're going to put them out as far as we can on the edges of the paper, because in real life these are happening in your peripheral vision, and the closest we can come to putting the vanishing points that far apart is by putting them literally on the edges of the paper. So we're going to make a vertical line now that represents the corner that's closest to us. So you'll notice that for 1 point, the objects are turned this way. For 2 point, you're turning the objects this way. Okay, so we're going to draw this vertical line right here. Okay. So I have my vertical line. You can do it anywhere you want in between the 2 vanishing points. Then everything that's on the left-hand side is going to go to the left vanishing point. Whoops. Okay. And everything that's on the right is going to go to the right vanishing point. Okay. And then, so now we have the front two planes. We have this front edge, and we have this plane and this plane. Now we need to decide how wide we're going to make the structure. We're drawing these lines right here. Okay. So I'm going to take my ruler and I'm lining it up with my corner that's closest to it, and I'm sliding it over to one side. Let's go ahead and make it about that long. Right, that wide. Common mistakes are students rotating the rulers, so that's one thing you want to avoid. Let me do this. Okay, so now I have the front two sides, and now I'm going to do the back side. So when you do the back side, think opposite, right? So you have the opposite corners going to the opposite vanishing point. So the left side goes to the right vanishing point, the right side goes to the left vanishing point to define the back edge, the opposite side. Right? So you should all have a figure that looks like this now. And then if you want, you can go ahead and erase any extra lines that might make things more confusing. And we're going to add a few features here. So if you, for example, if you wanted to make a pointed roof, right, we would make it like so that you can see the back side inside this box. So you can see this back line. So I came straight down from the interior side, and then from this bottom corner, the bottom left-hand corner, to the right vanishing point to find this plane. So these two planes, you can now see they're directly parallel from each other. And inside each of them, I'm going to make an X, and this is to find the center of those planes. This line is already pretty close to what you have there. So, but now I know that that's the center. Okay, and then I can come straight up, and then I'll do the same thing with the front plane. Straight up, and then you can close that off and make your triangle. And then you can take from the top of the triangle and come to your left vanishing point to get the top of your roof line. So that way that's how you know how long the roof line is going to be. It comes to the tip over here, and then you just close that one off. All right, and then again, you erase the information that you don't need anymore so that your structure looks solid. Okay, now what you know at this point in time is what you need for a competent. If you want a more challenging, a higher level grade, then I recommend making things that project in and come out. So I'm going to demonstrate a door and a set of stairs for you so you can start to think about how you can modify this. So I have my vertical lines to represent the sides of the door. And then the top of it goes to the left vanishing point because it's on the left side, and this top is parallel with the bottom and the top. So all three of these lines are going to use the same vanishing point, so they all come to this side. To make the door open, I'm going to use the opposite vanishing point. And then again, I'll come straight up and down. All right, and we can like shade the inside. If we want. Right, and you can make like a little doorknob or what have you. And if you wanted to give the door a little bit of volume, then you can come back just a little tiny bit to the left vanishing point to close it off. And then connecting the top. All right, so now you can see how to make things project out. It'd be the similar concept for a balcony. It would just be wider and less tall. Okay. So, and if we're going to make a set of stairs, right, let's have our stairs come off the opposite side. So, actually, so I'm gonna make it larger, like, so I'm gonna have them just kind of come arbitrarily off the side here. I understand it won't look realistic anymore, but we've got the top tread. All right, so the top tread, these two lines are going to agree with this vanishing point, similar to the balcony concept that I just mentioned to you. All right, and then this line, because it's parallel with these two lines, it uses the same vanishing point. So anything that projects out from here will use this vanishing point. Anything that's in agreement with these two lines will use the same vanishing point on that side. Okay, so we've just defined the tread. Now we're going to define the rise. So you just come straight up and down. And then you can come back, you know, clearly you're going to be using this vanishing point again. All right, so you have your rise. And then we're going to come back out again to demonstrate the next tread. Okay, and then we're going to close this tread off by again using the same vanishing point. That's going to make it parallel with these two lines. So now you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and now 5 lines all leading to the same vanishing point. Right, but that's because if you imagine yourself in this world, all of these lines are parallel with each other and parallel with the ground. And you come straight up and down. Am I starting to, yeah. Straight up and down to indicate the rise. And then closing off the rise again, using that same vanishing point. And then if we want to give the stairs volume going this way, we could close them off like that, right? And you have your vertical line going straight up and down. Okay. So far the differences that you have 1 point perspective where you're looking straight at something and everything that is going back in space is converging at one vanishing point. All right? That one vanishing point. And then when you do 2 point perspective, it's turned at an angle, right? And everything that is parallel to the ground that you imagine yourself in will go back to either of the 2 vanishing points. Okay. And I'm going to demonstrate to you Tintoretto's version of the Last Supper. So this is during the late Renaissance. And you can see how the tables are turned, so you have the corner that's closest to you, and then all the information goes back in one direction, also the tiles on the floor. And then you have the other side of the table going back this way. So the second vanishing point in this image is actually happening outside of the picture. You can also see that the human figures are dressed in more casual clothing. It's more of a common day kind of appearance, and it's more of an inviting space too. It's kind of like, you know, a party that most anybody could probably be a part of. And so it's an interesting, neat thing to note, you know, that this is happening later in the Renaissance. It's kind of like art is starting to take on more of kind of almost like an advertising role, because people are now starting to learn how to read, and they're developing their own interpretations of the Bible. And so people have been breaking away from the church, which is, you know, part of what the Renaissance is all about. So this is kind of like a way to try to draw people back into the church, is by commissioning more work to be done like this. Also, you know, the objective is to make your work look as realistic as possible, because you're trying to convince people that these events actually took place.